Whether you're teaching online or not, a major thing you have to consider is how to communicate with your students in more than one way in order to help them stay engaged with your course material. And so today I want to give you some tips for tools and activities you can do that require different modes of communication. So text, audio, visual, etc. All right, so let's get started. Hey there, it's Erica from Ever Educating, and this channel is all about teaching tips, tools, ideas, and resources for new college instructors. So if that's you, go ahead and click subscribe below. But in today's video specifically, we're talking about different activities and tools you can use to make sure you're communicating with your students using more than one mode of communication. So the first tip I have is, of course, the text-based, right? So words, you're doing this all the time in written and verbal form. But my tip here is to use either Google Slides rather than PowerPoint, because Google Slides allows you to use a lot of templates in order to really liven up the text that you're sharing with your students. And this is especially the case if you're teaching in an online space. And so, for example, you have the Google slide is usually, right, the regular slide, right? But you can change it so that it looks like a PDF. And so I'll show you how to do that very easily now on the screen. To create the PDF, all you do is go to Google Slides and then click File, Page Setup, and then change it to Custom. And you can do any measurements you want, but if you do 8 by 11 and apply it, now that's the size of a regular page PDF. By using Google Slides, you can use the templates and the various font, and it makes it really easy to kind of move things around versus just using, for example, Microsoft Word or Google Docs. So I recommend this kind of use for Google Slides, not just for presenting, right, lectures, but actually creating PDFs that are a bit more interactive for your students. You can add hyperlinks, you can add GIFs or GIFs, that kind of stuff to these to make them a bit more engaging for your students. Now for audio, let's not think video yet, but for audio specifically, you might consider just recording. So there's two ways of doing this, right? So first you can record yourself a video, right? So using QuickTime or using Loom or whatever the case may be, right? And you record yourself speaking and presenting information either on the screen or just with you, actually looking at you and your face. So you can record the video, right? And then if you go to, for example, iMovie or any free software for editing video, you can separate the audio from the actual video, okay? And then you can save that audio file as its own separate file. This way, if you have students who don't have as much access to the internet, to Wi-Fi, data, etc., rather than asking them to download or view a video, the audio will be much smaller as a file. So they can just listen to you rather than watching you. Okay? So you can get that as an option. Of course, you can also use, let's say if you have an iPhone, the voice memo app, and you can just click record and record yourself giving the lecture and then pausing and then sending that link out to your students. You can also use audio for getting feedback to your students. So for example, if you're watching something or you're reading something that they created, you can just hit record again, record yourself giving like, great job doing this can use some work, here's a suggestion. And then once you finish, again, you end the voice recording and you send it to your students. So you can either use it as like almost a podcast lecture or as a way to give feedback on student responses to your assignment prompts. Okay, so that's one way you can use audio other than the usual, PowerPoint presentation that you do. Now following that, obviously video is another option here, right? So you can either use, Loom or Zoom, or like case may be, QuickTime to record yourself giving a lecture, screen recording or not, and I have a video about that too that I'll link below and also above. But in this case, you're creating video lectures, right? So either using, maybe you're going over a PowerPoint on your screen, or you just have the camera facing you and you're speaking to your students, eye to eye. So in this case, obviously, then you can consider, do you want to post it on YouTube in order to have them access it? You can use unlisted as an option on YouTube so that it's not searchable. But if you have a link, you can see it. Or if you use Loom, like I mentioned, that automatically creates a link for you to use. The editing that video is very difficult. So you have to be able to do like one take, right, when you're doing it that way. But again, it's a simpler way of doing it because then you just copy the link and send it to your students. And there's also ways of actually adding a link to the video. So when they click it, they can go to a resource that you link to it. It has a few options that I find pretty cool. And so you can see my Loom tutorial if you want to see more about that. So Also, there's 2 different websites, Edpuzzle and Vizia. And what you could do with these is you can actually have a video and then you create questions that appear throughout the video. So let's say you're watching a video on here, these 10 terminology that you need to know for your exam. So let's say you're going through examples and the definitions of each. Maybe 3 minutes in, you can actually insert a question using these apps, using these tools, and say, okay, to recap, what's this term mean? And then you could have multiple choice options, okay? Or maybe it can be short answer options, but in that case, you actually have to manually grade them. Whereas if it's multiple choice, then it can just be an immediate answer that they know, yes, that's correct, or no, it's not. Okay? So I again have a video on these tools, so you can go ahead and watch that later on as well. I'll link it below. But basically, it's a way of making video watching a bit more engaging. Because a lot of people, you watch a video on YouTube, right? But you're doing something else. You're cleaning the kitchen, or you're cooking, whatever the case may be. Okay? So if you do this kind of tool, they actually have to respond to these questions before moving on to the rest of the video. Now, images or visuals that are static can also be a great way of engaging your students in their learning. And so I use canva.com for this, which I've mentioned before. I'll link it below. But you can create tons of graphics on here, social media graphics, but also, resumes or PDFs. Infographics is a great one, creating infographics for your class, especially if you're teaching online. But also, you can have the creation of memes, or whatever the case may be, right? And so memes, for example, could be a form of icebreaker that you're doing in your classroom if you're teaching online, and I have a video about 5 icebreakers for online teaching. But basically here is you can either create them yourself for your students, or you can have students create them for you, right, as part of an assignment. So Canva is free to use, you just have to sign up for it. And so I do think it's a good option, though of course you can just have students create their own using other types of tools like Google Slides, for example. They can just have a photo on there and then add in the text. What's good about Canva is that it gives a lot of free stock photo options, so you don't have to worry about copyright. Other websites you can look at are pexels.com, right? Or PX here is another one too. And so I'll link those below as well. Now, kinesthetic activities can be another mode of communication, so ones that involve movement, but that's a bit more advanced. My suggestion would be there is considering doing some research on augmented reality and how you can use that as a way to engage your students in a different form of communication. But I'm not going to cover that in this video because it involves a lot more steps. If you're interested in learning more about that, let me know below and I'll do another video for specifically that mode of communication. Now, these are only 4 modes of communication. There are obviously more, but I'd be curious to know which one you favor personally as a student, right? So not as an instructor, but when you were a student, which one do you feel was most engaging to you? And go ahead and comment below with that answer, because I think you can then use the answers from the community to kind of figure out which one should you be using more often in your teaching. Now, there's a lot of videos that I've linked below because I have already so many connecting to these tools that I mentioned in this one. And it's also part of an overall playlist about online teaching and digital assignments and EdTech tools. So you can go ahead and click that playlist below if you just want to see, all of them listed in one easy to use place. Go ahead and click the like button, letting me know that you found this video helpful. And again, click subscribe if you want to make sure that you don't miss any new videos about teaching tips, tools, ideas, and resources for new college instructors.